Hello, we are Alyssa Chang and Dylan Hill, researchers of biotechnology working to help reduce the poaching of African elephants. We are doing this by educating others about how every section of biology can be related back to elephants and the serious issue of poaching. We hope you enjoy our slideshow presentation.
Our lab findings. So first I want to start with the data. We were group 10, so me and Dylan, along with Amelia and Emily, did elephants 37 through 40, and their letter code was, for the first one, 37A, 38B, and the last two, 39 and 40A. So the first elephant, the fragment length of 1, 2, 3, and 4 was 6,000, 3,000, 800, and 400. And the habitat that this animal ended up coming from was the savanna, Xinjiang. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Elephant 38 was 6K, or 6,000, 5,000, 2,000, and 0. And the habitat it ended up coming from was Tam Serengeti. Elephant 39, 6,000, 4,000, 900, 550, and it ended up coming from Savannah / Tam Serengeti. And although a little bit different number-wise, just 50 above that last fragment length, the last elephant came from the Savannah / Tam Serengeti again. So my pre-lab questions describe what is happening to the elephant population. Well, we talked about it in class, and the elephant population is declining rapidly, mostly due to poaching elephants for tusks and meat, and sometimes whole heads to use as trophies, hunting trophies. So several teams across the world are finding ivory shipments using DNA replication and structure, as well as just gel-electric phoresis, like we learned, to identify where these shipments of ivory are coming from specifically, to try and force law enforcement to protect to help protect the elephants. Some elephants are, of course, in reserved areas, which helps them a lot, but for the elephants who are not yet in reserved areas, it helps protect them from poaching. I've been seeing this a lot, not just in the pre-lab, but in other labs that we've done and worksheets, that a lot of the poaching comes from around the area of Gabon and the Republic of Congo. That little, if you imagine Africa as a pea, like the shape of a pea, because it kind of looks like that. It's like right at the crevice, like a backwards pea. It's right where the bottom of the circle part of the pea and the line touch, like that area. So where Gabon is, the Republic of Congo, several other smaller countries, that's kind of where I've seen them all, the poaching comes from, which I think is really interesting. And dung samples have been collected from elephant populations to use to prepare a DNA database, so when they do pick up these ivory, they can compare and contrast DNA genes and traits in an effort to gather more data to help the elephants. When we finish the lab, Dylan's post-lab questions, which I am explaining for him, explain how DNA analysis can be helped to reduce African elephant poaching. So we actually compared our answers, and we both agreed that we can help by breeding elephants with tusklessness to try to stop illegal poaching. It also can be used to help find where the poaching is, so we can put more law enforcement in those certain areas to stop the elephant, specifically elephant poaching. The location of a major poaching hotspot, like I said before, the Republic of DRC, or the Democratic Republic of Congo, is major levels of poaching because it seems to have a lower population of tusked elephants compared to tuskless elephants, which means that most of the tusked elephants have been killed for their tusks. Reducing elephant poaching is critical to the savanna ecosystems because elephants are a keystone species and are drastically important to the savanna. Several other species rely on them, especially for their tusks. There's actually several animals that rely on elephants to use their tusks to dig holes into the ground, and that becomes their home, their burrow, their habitat, depending on the animal. The fragments, what did you do if their fragments were not exact? How can you still use this information? It means that a genetic disorder could occur, a mutation, if you will. We can still use this to see how it relates to the tusks of the elephants, because some elephants might also have different mutations than just the general public. And that is our lab data. All right. Unit 1, Chemistry of Life. Macromolecules, macro meaning big, are big molecules that work in your body. They make up some parts of your body. You eat them in food a lot. You'll recognize some of them just from reading the can of beans. You'll see carbohydrates and proteins on there. But there are 4 categories of macromolecules. Carbohydrates, as we discussed, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. And they are in everything you eat, and they're always in your body, too. So carbs and lipids are made out of, carbs, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids are all made of 5 main elements, with give or take a couple. Carbohydrates and lipids are made out of carbon, hydrocarbons, and oxygen. Proteins are made of those 3 plus nitrogen. And nucleic acids are made out of carbon, hydrocarbons, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphate, so all 5. Nucleic acids make nucleotides, or are made nucleotides. Nucleotides contain of a nitrogenous base, being adenine, thymine, guanine, or cytosine, as you can see in the photo, A, T, C, and G. And they also contain a phosphate and deoxyribose sugar. Nitrogenous base, phosphate, and deoxyribose sugar build up a nucleotide, and nucleotides build up DNA, which are your genes. They instruct your body on how certain proteins are made, how you look, how you function, if you have any disorders or disabilities. Those can be caused by mutations in your DNA. And how does this relate to elephants? Well, DNA is used to help identify locations of ivory. In the ivory, DNA is contained, and certain DNA will lead to certain elephant DNA, which can vary from species to species, place to place. It helps us track down where the poaching of that certain animal is. The photo citation is Pearson 1.11a, and the slides that I used to make this slide are macromolecules 1 and 2.
Unit 2 primarily focuses on the cell structure and function. A quick recap of the unit is that there are many different organelles in the cell, one of which being the nucleus. The nucleus stores genetic information, and during cell division, this information is wound up into chromosomes. Chromosomes contain the information that make up a being. There are 22 autosomal chromosomes and 1 pair called the sex pair, which determines the sex of the being at birth. Some traits are sex-linked, meaning that they will follow you based off of one of your sex chromosomes. The elephant study in Mozambique states that tusklessness is a sex-linked trait and is linked on the X chromosome, which is fatal in males because they cannot defend themselves in the wild without their tusks. Unit 3 primarily focuses on cell energetics, photosynthesis, and cellular respiration. A quick recap of the unit is that there are many different organelles in the cell that help to power it, 2 of which being the mitochondria and the chloroplasts. The chloroplasts help give energy to plants due to a process called photosynthesis. Mitochondria give energy to plants and other living organisms by banking energy in ATP, in the process known as cellular respiration. While photosynthesis is not directly linked to elephant poaching in Mozambique, cellular respiration can be attributed to it indirectly. As every living being needs energy to live, overall fitness is determined by this process. It indirectly affects the habits of the elephants to survive poaching pressure.
Unit 4, cell cycle, mitosis and or meiosis. Cytosis and meiosis are cellular reproduction, which means that the cells either reproduce or they split and basically create more cells, which is the point. Mitosis will divide a cell into two separate cells, and meiosis divides the gamete cells, which are sex reproduction cells. I put the equation 2n equals 4 versus n equals 2. So 2n equals 4 is mitosis. And at the end, as you can see in the picture on the right, it ends up making two versions of 2n equals 4. But they start out as 2n equals 4, right? And meiosis, 2n equals 4, is later separated into n equals 2 because it makes 4 different versions split up by 2n equals 4. That's just a mathematical way to look at it, and personally I find it easier than just looking at meiosis in general. It's a good way for me to understand it. Mitosis helps grow cells, grow and develops them, and meiosis introduces genetic variation. Mitosis helps tusks grow, and meiosis carries tusklessness gene. Because of poaching in Africa of elephants, meiosis actually carries the tusklessness gene across an elephant's reproduction system. So when they have mostly female, elephant babies, some may have tusklessness because of that meiosis. The photo citation is from Pearson 8.14, and the slides that I used to create this slide is Molecular Biology of the Gene in Unit 6.
Unit 5 primarily focuses on genetics and heredity. A quick recap of the unit is that there are proteins that can change genes because of the very environment and changes around it. There are many vast changes going on in the world of the elephants in Mozambique. Their entire world is getting upside down as they are being hunted for their ivory tusks. Two proteins known as MEP1A and AMELX are why tusklessness occurs. These genes are linked on the X chromosomes and are known to be associated with a disease known as amelogenesis imperfecta in humans, which causes enamel abnormalities, imperfections in teeth, and even for teeth to go missing. Tusklessness is an X-linked dominant trait that is okay for females to possess, but is fatal for males to possess, as there is no way for them to protect themselves in the wild.
Unit 6, DNA structure / replication and protein synthesis. DNA structure, as we discussed in Unit 1, DNA is made out of phosphate, phosphate group, deoxyribose sugar, and a nitrogenous base. The nitrogenous bases are adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. In RNA, thymine will be swapped with uracil, and these make up your genes. Adenine and guanine are purine, and thymine and cytosine are pyrimidines, or when it's RNA, uracil will be a pyrimidine. This basically means that purines have a double ring structure, and pyrimidines have a single ring structure. It's just different in the way that they connect to the other. The DNA structure is often defined as a double helix shape, which means it kind of swerves together. It kind of looks like a ladder, but curl it, like a curled ladder. And the sugar phosphate backbone is anti-parallel, which means one side is going, say, if we want to put this in direction of arrows, imagine a ladder, right, like we talked about. Well, imagine one side is up and the other side is down, and we still mix them together. That's what antiparallel is. Antiparallel. They're not going in the same direction. They're going antiparallel, in opposite directions. But they're still parallel to each other. It's not like they're perpendicular. Like we discussed, a deoxyribose sugar is part of the backbone, the sugar phosphate backbone. Well, on the deoxyribose sugar, there are 5 carbons, and they're all numbered in a specific way. So, on a double helix, antiparallel, the sugar will connect to the 3rd carbon to the 5th carbon. So, one side of the double helix will be 3rd carbon to a 5th carbon, and on the other side, it would be a 5th carbon to a 3rd carbon. That's why it says antiparallel 3rd, 5th, which means 3rd to 5th carbon, vice versa. So on one side it'll be 3rd to 5th carbon, and the other side will be 5th to 3rd carbon. Enzymes help intertwine DNA replication. Sorry about my enunciation. I'm kind of sick right now. These enzymes will include RNA ligase, RNA polymerase, and they just help an old strand of DNA and a new strand bond together, because DNA is, as DNA replication suggests, it replicates an old strand of DNA and a new strand of DNA, and it combines them together to make a completely new strand of DNA, which is really cool. How does this relate at all to elephants? Well, DNA structure and replication and the knowledge of that can help trace ivory origin and identify networking, which means scientists, if they take DNA from the ivory, can help trace back to where that ivory was poached to help put more law enforcement in those areas to help protect against poaching, instead of just picking a place in Africa, being like, oh, there are elephants there, put more poaching laws up, because that wouldn't be very specific, and maybe that city doesn't poach as much. We want to protect elephants that are constantly being poached in certain areas. The photo citation is Pearson 10.2, and the slide citation, the slides that I may use to make the slide, are the structure and replication of DNA.
Unit 7 focuses on the theory of natural selection and Darwin's theory of evolution. Speaking of Darwin, Darwin states that natural selection is the mechanism by which all evolution occurs. Additionally, Darwin states that random mutations are the ultimate source of variation. The fact that so many elephants are getting poached in Mozambique means that they are bound to evolve. Since tusked elephants receive so much pressure on them, their tusked counterparts were allowed to breed and create more tusked elephants. This creates a general ratio change, and thus a change in population.
Unit 8, Ecology, and my personal favorite unit. Biogeochemical cycles. These are the carbon cycle, the phosphate cycle, nitrogen cycle, and the water cycle, are affected by small changes in the ecosystem. And the carbon cycle hasn't been the same since humanity invented cars, fossil fuels, ways to get around, heating the house. It changed the cycle for good and is actually damaging it so far, but we're trying to change that. But even just that wasn't really a small change, but just changes that are, different than what the ecosystem is expecting. It can affect the entire cycle and the environment around it. Another thing we learned is energy flow and energy pyramids. If you see to the chart on the right, we learned that energy flows up and not down, but up through the food chain mostly. Energy will move. The flour will be have 100% energy, and it will kind of decrease by 10 times as it moves up the energy flow, or at least that was an example that was used. So the butterfly might have 10% of the energy that the flower's nectar did. The frog, 0.1%, and the heron, 0.01%. And it would just keep on going up from there, because usually a heron isn't, the top of the food chain. Populations rely on biotic, abiotic, and intrinsic factors. Abiotic being temperature, sunlight, water, certain nutrients, etc. I think I messed that up. Let me try again. Biotic factors would be prey, competitors, parasites, different, biotic meaning life, living, stuff like that. Abiotic factors, would be sunlight, temperature, environment, nutrients, water, etc. Intrinsic factors, though, would be adaptions. So adaptions to the environment, to the ecosystem, to that kind of place. How does this connect to elephants? Well, elephants are keystone species in their ecosystem. They're not the top of the food chain, but there's not much bigger than them. And they need their tusks make holes for certain animals in the earth. They help tear down trees and stuff, so sometimes that's needed. Their dung helps dung beetles and it kind of fertilizes the ground so more plants can grow. They are a big and important species to their ecosystem anywhere they are. And poaching damages their population and the ecosystem around them because less elephants means less things, or less, elephants to do the digging, to poo, to help that ecosystem. So the poaching, and most of the times, poachers don't just take the tusks. Sometimes they'll cut off the entire face and, the animal will unfortunately die. And that damages a population. I mean, some elephants are endangered, some species of elephants are endangered, some even, on the brink of extinction. It's terrible. But that's why poaching needs to be stopped, because it's damaging the population, not only the population of elephants, but the entire ecosystem surrounding elephants and where they live. The photo citation is Pearson from 8.14, and the slides I used to create it are ecology notes. My Laudato Si slide, my quote from Laudato Si is, "In our time, the church does not simply state that other creatures are completely subordinate to the good of human beings, as if they have no worth in themselves and can be treated as we wish." That is from point 69 of the Laudato Si. The Laudato states how all creatures live for themselves. They're not strictly to serve our purpose. They may not have souls, as St. Augustine said, and they may not go to heaven, but that does not mean they are not loved, and they should not be treated as just slaves to the human race. Every creature matters, from an ant that we might kill just because they're annoying us, to the biggest animal on earth, the elephant. Or not the biggest animal on earth, but, a big elephant. A big animal, such as an elephant. Every creature matters because every creature affects the earth, good or bad, somehow. And God made them to do as such. They live for themselves. They live to survive. But they're not just subject to the human race. We can't just do anything with them. We can't just hurt these animals because we are greedy, like poaching elephants. We can't just take these animals, their heads, their tusks, their meat, as if they mean nothing. They do. They mean everything. And so that is my Laudato Si slide. Oh, and the picture is a church made in the jungle, all natural. They have straw canopies, wood. I researched this specific picture because there were no electricity. It's all nature-based. Even the chairs are made of wood from the forest. And I thought it was a really beautiful representation of how our church is one with nature. God will be anywhere. In the nature, in the city, in the jungle where creatures live. I thought it was a really beautiful picture. I thought it meant a lot to me.
Laudato Si is the famous document written by Pope Francis to talk about environmental issues from the perspective of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church responded to these issues, and it was authored by Pope Francis before his death. Laudato Si says 7 goals for a better environment, and a quote from Laudato Si is, "Unless we struggle with these deeper issues, I do not believe that our concern for ecology will produce significant results."
On behalf of Dylan and I, thank you so much for listening and reading our presentation. We had a bunch of fun making this, and we hope you had as much fun learning with us as much as you've taught us. So thank you so much.